So today we're going to talk about how animals learn and about communication. Part of what I'm going to talk about is how animals are trained, but don't think that at the end of my presentation you're going to be able to go home and train your own pet, because training is actually a little bit more complicated than what I'm able to talk about today. But there's a couple of things I want you to think about. First of all, you want to think about how you're going to motivate your animal, and there's a couple of different ways to motivate. Motivate means that the animal is doing something because of what happens when they do it. So, for instance, let's say your mom says, okay, you need to go clean your room and I want it spotless within an hour. But you're too busy doing something else, like maybe you're playing video games and you lose track of time, and an hour later she comes back and she is furious and she's like, I told you to go clean your room, you didn't clean your room, now I'm really mad, no more video games for a week. Well, if you really love video games and you can't live without video games, the idea of going for a week without video games is horrifying to you. So the next time she says to clean your room, you're going to think back on the time that you lost video game privileges for a week, and you're going to hurry up and clean your room. So that's one kind of motivation. I guess we could call that punishment. Another type of motivation is when something good happens because you did as you were supposed to. So let's say your mom says, go clean your room, and you immediately get up and you clean your room and you do a really, really good job. And she walks into your room and she's just astounded. All your clothes are picked up and put away, the closet door is closed, all your toys are off the floor, your bed is made, you dusted, you vacuumed, everything looks fantastic. And she is so happy that you were responsible enough to clean your room that she says, come on, get in the car, we are going to go for some ice cream. Now, if you really love ice cream, and that's a special treat and you don't get it very often, the next time she says to clean your room, you're probably going to clean your room because you are going to hope that you're getting ice cream again. So the ice cream is a reward. That's another type of motivation. The other thing we need to think about if we're going to work with animals is patience. They don't speak our language, so if I wanted you to do something like point to a chair and say, go sit down, you would understand what I meant. If I want to tell my dog to do that, she would have no clue. So I have to think about ways that I can communicate with my dog that is going to get through to her and make her understand what I want. And then the other thing we need if we're going to train an animal is practice. So just like the way you get better at something like a language or a sport or playing a musical instrument is by practicing, that is the way that animals get better at things too. So if I want to teach my dog something as simple as sit, not only do I have to teach her what that word means, but I also have to practice in different situations. So she needs to know that sit means the same thing whether we're at home, whether I'm sitting on the floor, or whether I'm standing, in all different types of situations. And then there's one more thing we need to do if we're going to teach an animal, and that is to think about how you can break it down into simpler steps so that the animal understands what you're talking about. I'm going to give you an example. Let's say I want to teach someone to read who's never learned how to read or even hasn't learned their letters or anything. I'm not going to get a chapter book and sit down with them and say, today we're going to learn how to read this book, because that's going to be way too complicated. So what's the first thing that anyone needs to know before they can learn to read? How about the alphabet? You need to know what the letters of the alphabet are. So that's one of the first things we learn when we're about 3 years old is the alphabet song. And then the next thing we need to know is our sounds. We need to know that sometimes C sounds like an S and sometimes C sounds like a CH sound if it's with an H. We need to know that different sounds, different letters combined with other letters can make different sounds. And then once we've got that down, we can start putting together some really simple words. So 3-letter words, 1-letter words, 2-letter words. And once we know a number of those 1, 2, and 3-letter words, we can put a couple of words together, and that makes a sentence. And once we've got even more words. We can read many sentences, and eventually, when we're old enough and we've had enough practice, we can start to read chapter books. So, of course, we're not going to teach our pets to read, but if I want to teach my dog to do something that maybe is a little complicated, I'm going to break them down into smaller sections. Once she understands each section, I'm going to put those sections together, and then eventually I'm going to have my finished behavior. So let me give you an example. When I was teaching my dog Whimsy to pick something up off the ground and hand it to me, I didn't start with something on the ground and try and get her to pick it up and hand it to me. First, I wanted to teach her to actually put her mouth on something. And then I had to teach her to hold it in her mouth. And then I had to teach her to pick something up from a distance. And then I had to teach her to bring it to me and put it in my hand. So there were a lot of these little steps that we worked on before I had the final behavior. So now she's got a nice little trick where if I point to something and say, bring it, she'll go pick it up and bring it to me. But that took a really long time to work on. And I had to be very, very patient because when we were first working on it, she really didn't understand what I was getting at. I hope that gives you a little bit of an idea as to how training a pet works. If you wanted more information, there are many very good clicker training tutorials on YouTube. Otherwise, Haws does offer many very good dog training classes, and you could sign up to take a class with your dog.